Hi everyone, this is Jessica Benner, the instructor for the LIS 2600 course, and I'm making this video to discuss the changes to the technology plan assessment and the removal of the compare and contrast essay assessment. Previously in the course, we had 5 assessments: the quizzes, the troubleshooting journal, the frequently asked questions website, the compare and contrast essays, and the technology plan. After I reviewed your scenarios for your technology plan, I realized that I was a little bit naive in thinking that you would come up with very general scenarios that will be applicable in some way to the essays that I designed. After I read through your scenarios, I realized that they're very well done and very specific, and that it might be more interesting for you to move through revising and thinking more deeply about your scenarios and expanding them more for the technology plan and giving you more time to think about that assignment, as opposed to writing 4 essays that might not actually be as helpful for you in the future. So, as I said, in my original plan, I really didn't give you enough time to explore your scenario and to think critically about the technology use within that institution. So what I've done now is I've removed the compare and contrast essays, and I've expanded the technology plan to give you, I'm not requiring more items to be included, but I'm giving you more time to write about and revise the technology plan in smaller chunks. Okay, so let's take a look at the changes. First, let me tell you that I updated the syllabus to reflect this new content, so please download a new version of the syllabus. And if you scroll down to the assessments section, to the table, you can see I've removed the compare and contrast essays, and I've added a new line to the technology implementation plan. So the way the plan is going to work now is you've already completed phase 1, you've done your scenario selection, and this week I'm assigning the first draft in phase 2. We'll talk about that in detail in a minute. And then you're going to have 4 different drafts. So you're going to draft up individual sections in phase 2 over the course of about 8 weeks. Then you're going to do a final revision for phase 3 and turn it in. All right? And now, actually, the 2 big projects, the frequently asked questions site and the technology implementation plan, are a little more equally weighted, with the frequently asked questions site worth 30 points, or a third of the grade, and the technology implementation plan worth 31 points, or another third of the grade. All right. Additionally, I've also updated the schedule, so please download a new schedule. And the language is tech plan phase. Okay? So for this week, we're in week 5. Oops. And as you can see, the topic this week is cloud computing, and I've updated the language within the schedule to reflect this new emphasis on the technology plan and the removal of the compare and contrast essays. So this week you are assigned Tech Plan Phase 2, number 1, Draft 1, and you've just turned in your 3rd graded journal on the WordPress tutorial and your frequently asked questions Phase 2, round number 1, which is your first redesign and using a little bit of CSS. And so as we continue to move through the term and thus move through this schedule, you'll see the language is updated. Tech Plan Phase 2, Tech Plan Phase 2 number 2, moving down. And the next change that I made is that instead of originally I had the final version of the frequently asked questions and the final version of the technology plan due in the same week. And I realize that that might be a little too heavy for you. So what I've done is I'm assigning the final version of the technology plan on right after Thanksgiving. And then you'll have a week to turn that in. And then you've got the last week to spend on sprucing up and really honing in the design of your frequently asked questions page. Okay, and hopefully if you've been working diligently on this page, you won't really have much at all to do in the last week, and you can focus on your other classes. Okay, so now for the details of the technology plan. As I mentioned, there are 3 phases. The scenario selection, which you already completed, is the first phase. The second phase includes writing drafting sections 4 different times. And then you'll have the final plan, which has all the components. So let's look at the detail. All right, the first phase, creating a scenario, is the same. You did that part. Now, for the phase 2, this is where you're going to actually write the bulk of your technology plan, and you're going to do it over 8 weeks. And I want you to submit the drafts to your Google Drive folder, and you can do them individually as individual documents or in one document. It doesn't matter to me as long as, you need to mark them as different sections. Okay? And the final plan should be one document. So here are the sections that I want you to have in your final plan. Obviously, you need an introduction, and this is going to introduce the plan and the scenario that you've selected. Then you're going to have the vision statement, which is related to the scenario and specifically the institution within that scenario and its mission, vision, or goals, but definitely the vision. Then the next section is the background and current state of technology, which is a description of the current technology use in the institution. So this is what exists. How is technology currently used? What is the current infrastructure? What kind of hardware, software, etc.? And you've got a lot of answers to these already in your scenario selection document. But you're going to need to do more research and find out more and add more details into this section. And then the last section is action steps. So technology goals and objectives. And I want you to have a rationale for every goal and technology goal that you set. And so this is the action part of the plan. And you should be thinking about or researching, if you're using a real institution or asking questions of people at a real institution about what does that institution want to do with technology. And that becomes a goal, and a goal has several objectives, or at least one objective, and action steps or recommendations. Now, I know that sounds like a lot to you right now, but what I've done is this resource that I'm about to show you from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, you should use this to guide your work. So here's the site, Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, Library Technology Planning and Outline of the Process. So this is actually a pretty nice guide that does 2 things. It discusses a couple key factors in technology planning, and it actually provides you the technology plan outline and some guidelines on what to put in each section. Now, I have aligned our assessment in the class with the outline that they provide here. So that way you can use this as a direct reference to design your plan. So let's look at a couple of things. So the first are the key factors in technology planning. This includes, supporting staff, other stakeholders that are involved, service-based technology goals and initiatives, developing staff skill sets, and then, of course, the funding and the development of a budget. So these are 5 things that are important for you to, think about and get information about. And then the next part is the plan outline. So you're going to see something very similar. Introduction and overview, vision statement, background and current state of technology, action steps. Now there are 2 pieces that I did not require you to have. One is the executive summary, and this is essentially a fairly long abstract of the content of your plan. You might choose to have this in the beginning of your document to kind of provide if you are showing this document, this whole document, say it's 10 pages, and you're showing it to your boss, and your boss has 2 minutes to read it, they're going to want to read an executive summary, which gives them all of the details in one place that's very easy to read in a couple minutes. So you might want to include that if you're doing this in a real setting and you're going to be showing it to different stakeholders who don't have much time to read or don't have enough time to read the whole 10, 15, however many pages it turns out to be. The other thing I'm not requiring you to have here is evaluating the technology plan. So what this section means is now that you've got this plan in place, theoretically you're going to implement it in an institution. And this is how you're going to evaluate whether you're meeting the goals that you set up in the action step. And I think this is also valuable to do, but I'm not sure that it's something that you need to do in this course. So if you want to do this, feel free to do it. I'll gladly read it and give you comments on it, but it's not required, and you can choose to do it if you want to. And you might want to do it, or you should do it if you're writing this technology plan for a real institution that's going to be implemented. You should think about how you're going to evaluate whether the plan is being implemented correctly, or whether the plan is working, or when the plan needs to be revised, etc. Okay, so into the details. So we've got this introduction and overview section. Now this guide, again, this Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction guide, I want you to use this as your guideline for writing your plan. This says that the introduction overview provides general information on the library, its services, and its overall mission. It includes an explanation of how the technology plan was developed, who was involved in the process, and what process will be used to review and update the plan. So you can write about how the plan is developed. You're developing it yourself. You're developing it iteratively. You can say you're involved and I'm involved in the process. And, the process that will be used to review and update it is submitting drafts to me and then updating it. And then, again, if you're using this in a real scenario, you can update that language at the end to reflect how you're really going to update and review this in the real world. And here it says this section can be omitted if the technology plan is part of a broader library planning document. Now, some of you are working on scenarios that this would be the case where the technology plan is part of a broader library planning, but for the purpose of the course, I want you to include this section. Okay. Now, the next section, the vision statement. This describes how technology assists staff to do their job. No more than a couple sentences. And they give you an example here, an example vision statement related to technology. Again, providing better reference services to local businesses by offering access to business-related databases. So, for those of you who are using real-world institutions, they might not have a vision statement for technology. You might need to make that yourself. I also think it's useful, whether in this area or probably more appropriately in the introduction, you must include the mission of the institution. That's important. And in this section, it's focused on the technology, the vision for the use of technology. And this is going to relate directly to, or at least be somewhat related to, the goals that you're going to set in the action part. Okay. Then for the background and current state of technology, this section is going to be a little bigger. This section and the action steps are the two biggest sections, the two main sections. And in the schedule, you're going to have two options, 2 different times to work on each of these sections. So 1 week, you're going to draft the background and current state of technology, and then 2 weeks later, you'll be assigned to revise that. So you're going to have a total of about 4 weeks to work on both of these sections. So you'll have a month for each one. And that should give you time to draft some parts and then think about it and revise them after you do some critical thinking and reading about the different areas. So the background and current state of technology, you're going to talk about the background of how long technology has even been used in this institution. You're going to talk about different hardware and software and service purchases and upgrades, what's currently being used. So the landscape of what's currently being employed or leveraged in this institution right now. And then there are some specific questions that you should address. And you can even make these their own sections and so these questions you need to address in the content. Okay. And the last one, these action steps. This is probably probably the most challenging section. So the idea behind this section is that given the institution that you chose, their mission, the vision statement for technology, and their current background in technology, which is what do they have access to, you're going to design a series of goals that relate to what does this institution want to continue to do with technology or newly do with technology. And you're going to set up a goal, and then you're going to have specific objectives that serve as the action part of the plan. And this is the framework for what's actually going to be accomplished, what actually would be accomplished if you would implement this plan in a real setting. And this section talks about how to make a good goal, and this part talks about the objectives. And you should include some of these, some of the items in these bullet points within your objectives. Okay. And we'll talk more about this. You can send me an email or post to the discussion board if you're having trouble with making these goals and objectives later in the term. So you've got time to think about this and work on this. It's not going to be due till the end of the term. So again, leverage this resource. I want you to use this specific resource and how it talks about the technology plan and this outline and the details to create your plan. I want you to follow this guide. And I want you to follow this schedule in the document in order to create these sections. So for the first draft, I want you to create sections 1 and 2. That's what I'm assigning this week. So this week, I want you to write or draft. They don't have to be perfect. I just want you to get them drafted. Draft sections 1, which is the introduction and overview, and section 2, which is the vision statement. And I want you to use the guidelines on that Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction site. The next draft, which is 2 weeks later, I want you to begin drafting section 3, which is the background current state of technology. And then 2 weeks later, you're going to revise that same section. Then 2 weeks later, the last draft in phase 2, you're going to begin drafting the action steps, section 4. And then for the final technology plan, you're going to include the 4 drafted sections that you would have written. And then you're going to revise the action steps section. And you're going to go over all of the sections and make sure that the plan is sound and well written and thoughtful and good. And again, I want you to follow these directions, and I want you to submit it in your Google Drive folder. So that was a quick overview of the changes to the technology plan assessment. Again, I have totally removed the compare and contrast essays, so you don't have to do those anymore. And I hope that my decision to let you focus and drill down into this technology plan is going to allow you to really think deeply about your scenario and the institution that you've chosen and really get a clear, deep understanding of what kinds of technologies are being used there, how they're being used, and how they could be used in the future, and for you to be able to think critically and make recommendations about what makes sense in terms of using technology in that institution. So again, let me know if you have any questions, and I wish you good luck, and I greatly look forward to reading the first draft of sections 1 and 2.